Welcome to Learning by Doing. This is a podcast about the process, about exploring people, exploring the development professionally, creatively, and personally. Each week, my co-host and I bring people on and talk about how they got to where they are, how they fail, and what they're going to do to keep going. Today, I have my future co-host, but for today, it's my guest, George. I'm Charles, and we're going to be talking about his latest project that is about to finish this Friday. The fuck was it called? The Fat Losers Project Fat Losers is a YouTube channel, or is a YouTube show as part of the TrapClap Coalition. No, TrapClap. I had it right. The TrapClap Coalition YouTube channel that George, his brother, and his roommate are hosting. So, George, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Charles. Glad to be here.
So, give a little description of what Fat Losers is by itself as an idea or as a project.
So, funny enough, the timing was really good. But Fat Losers was essentially just a creative facet for us to gamify our weight loss. Me, my brother, and my roommate Tyler were all athletes back in college, and through injuries or just change in the path of our lives, we all kind of regressed back to being lazy slops. to not put in such nice terms.
Exactly. When you lost that little bit of kind of restraint of having, all right, there's a gym next to my house and or whatever, it falling on your own fell a little further down, let's say.
Right, exactly. And there's a certain habit of like your eating habits and all that when you're losing or burning 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day because you're working out or training every day, that's fine. But once you stop doing it, but you're still so used to eating so much, you kind of just let yourself go off.
Yeah. So that's it. The background as an athlete is really what kind of, when you pivot, you need to reassess a lot of what you're doing, because when you were doing it as an athlete, it worked fine. Now that you're not doing it, now you're not spending practice and spending a lot of time in the gym, kind of regain of that. So going on about the show, how it goes.
Yep. So the show is essentially a week by week challenge of sorts where we see which one of the three of us can lose the most amount of weight. And based on whoever loses the most amount or the least amount, they will have an advantage or a disadvantage on a weekly challenge. And these challenges can range from who can hold a plank the longest, who can hold a cinder block above their head the longest,
that one.
to really anything that tests our stamina and our fitness. And from there, based on who the loser and the winners are, you will get punished at the end of the week. So, for example, our first punishment, I had to go out almost naked and get egged by everyone at the house. And these are just kind of nothing too traumatizing, but fun little ways to motivate you to know, I really don't want to be on the chopping block at the end of the week.
Yeah, just pushing you to keep up and to be better. And you're all starting at different points. You are kind of in the middle. You were sitting... Tyler, being your roommate, was the heaviest, and your brother was the lightest, but you were all very far away from your goal, and you were kind of equal in that matter. So all fighting for the same kind of descent in weight. So it made it equal, even though you would say like, oh well, Vigo, being his brother, was more in shape, so it'd be easier to lose weight. Not quite how it works, but it ended up working well, right. And I really like the format.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, when we're talking about process and stuff, that it took a lot of sitting down and figuring out, like, how should we gauge it? Because we are all different body weights. We're all at different stages of our fitness. So it's kind of like, do we go by body fat percentage, or do we just go by pounds? What's the good balance between what makes sense for the competition? But at the same time, is easy for the audience to follow and is a real tangible thing that they can see. Not everyone understands body fat percentages, or based on your levels of fitness, on you being able to do activity XYZ. So it just, especially like you were saying, when you add on the fact that sure, we were all at different body weights, but essentially we were all within the realm of trying to lose 20 to 30 pounds throughout this 3-month period.
Yeah, exactly.
We were all really aligned with where our target was. So
Yeah.
it just made sense that pounds lost for all of us made sense on a week by week basis.
All right. So that kind of brings me to how this idea come together. I mean, I think I remember hearing that Tyler was the one that kind of pushed for it, but what was the idea for making it a YouTube show? Because a lot of people challenge themselves with losing weight and all that, but what kind of pushed the idea of it becoming a show and then it having a that weekly basis? So
well, so like you were saying, Tyler was the one who initially pitched the idea, and it was just honestly just a couch moment of like, we've been talking for a while that we've been wanting to get back into our shape, and then it was just kind of like, well, how do we do that? How do we do it in a way that keeps us accountable? And then Tyler was just figured he's been sitting on the idea of making it like a video blog type of thing. We've been talking for a while now that because we have so many interesting characters among us, making a video production group altogether is actually something that we would consider. When you consider the fact that we're a bunch of different people with very strong personalities, it just kind of made sense. But that idea lingered for a good month or two, actually. So while the timing was really good, that during this whole pandemic thing is kind of when it kicked off, and that gave us a lot of time to be able to experiment and try different things and actually focus on our weight loss. It was really just at one point I was like, I really like your idea, Tyler. So how about we just ship it out? And I think it's one of those things where some people get like so stuck on trying to plan things and making sure every single piece works out before you actually ship something out. But I think when you have an idea, you just got to ship your idea out, minimum viable product, something that, will still look good, but makes sense. And then from there, you improve as you go.
Yeah,
so essentially,
but let's say, go here, go, keep going.
Yep. So just Tyler brought on the idea, and we had been shuffling around with it for a couple of months. And then I was just like, you know what, let's do it. Let's start in 2 weeks time. I already have the camera and the lighting gear, which kind of makes it easy. And then it's just, the hardest part from there was just trying to figure out what are we going to do from week to week to week.
Exactly. That's kind of my question is how formatted was that idea? How much of it was just we should make a weekly thing of losing weight, or was there the challenge already? Was there the punishments already? Or was that found on the fly?
So when we started off, it was pretty formatized. It made sense to me when I was trying to think of if we were going for a show, how often would we have to release, and how does that make sense with the recording and all that? So it was two components. One, it was obviously the challenges and the punishments are the most fun part of it all. And those are two things that can very easily be split off into 2 videos. So that's kind of where I figured we could have like a 2 video per week format, which kind of makes sense. One, to lead into the weigh-ins of the week. And then since we are already having about a week per week kind of schedule, we figured we'd add in weekly vlogs to it. So that's just an opportunity for the audience to understand us, understand our struggles, show our vulnerabilities, and kind of see us along the way. It's not try to keep it closer to home instead of just being a numbers thing where you see the numbers, you see a couple of friends just, have jabs at each other, and that's it.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, the 2 weeks thing was the 2 videos per week was very formatized, and we had about 3 to 4 weeks worth of challenges and punishments.
Okay.
And actually, looking back on it, I wish we had gone and hashed out the entire week, because I will say a lot of delays in the production, and we were lucky enough that we were able to get the videos out on schedule. We haven't missed a single day outside of one where we delayed it by a day because of some internal changes. So we were really blessed on that end, but it would have been better on that kind of thing where we would have planned ahead of time to figure out, what we would need to get for certain challenges, and we wouldn't be changing recording days based on the fact that we're not entirely sure what we want to do yet.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of challenges that came through from those recordings. I mean, you have, at the beginning you guys were 4, you had your other brother that was in, but having everybody be able to, all right, we're sitting down and doing the weight slides. So we need everybody to record. We need multiple angles. We need people to film during the week. I mean, there's a lot of things I want to know, mostly your experience on. You're not really an on-camera person. You have a YouTube channel, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But switching to a vlog mode, how's that pivoting over?
It's interesting because like most of the stuff I've ever done creatively has been very structured formatted. You know, it's usually information based where I'm trying to get information to people, or it's very much within my realm of the things that I've experienced in my life. Vlogging is different in that it's how do you take the mundaneness of the day to day but spin it in a way that's interesting. Or if that's not the case because your week was really slow, well, being okay with expressing your vulnerabilities to a wider audience.
Yeah, totally.
Those are the harder parts where it's you know, trying to find that balance between, you know, you want to keep it real because you want to make it relatable, but at the same time it's you have to open a lot of doors because the whole idea of a vlog is to get someone to know you, get to know your lifestyle, get to know the things you're going through. So that balance is tough, and it's kind of where you're trying to find a balance where like sometimes, you know, I'd be out and I kind of want to record, but at the same time the lighting is really bad. So it's just,
Yeah.
or I'm doing it at 2 in the morning. So I can't be as loud as I want to be. So sometimes I have to edit the audio, post to try and make it work. So it's this weird balance between trying to be on the fly because vlogs just kind of work out better when you're just like you got that energy and you can project that energy onto the camera, but still needs to be structured enough so that you can take care that, you know, it films properly, it records properly, and you can do it in a way that's engaging for the audience.
Yeah,
So that was my biggest hurdle between shifting between kind of more formatized content to something that's more freeform.
totally. And the fact, we'll take a little peek, but we'll go back a little later on as well, that you were also in the editing booth. You're the one that cut together all the episodes. Was it a little hard to make the pacing make sense? If you understand what I mean, of like you have all the footage from different people, and then not everybody records the same amount, not everybody records the same things, but kind of at the beginning it was all right. We need to figure it out, and then there was kind of a formula that was created of when you make a workout, you have the little workout video happening as well as the end of the workout vlog, kind of all that. So what came through to make that happen? The formula was created at some point, but before that.
Right. So that's kind of where you kind of just you throw things at the wall and see what sticks. So it didn't start off as a formula, and we just kind of figured we kind of have a format we want to go for, and then it just took I think about 3-4 weeks worth of just seeing what meshed, what didn't mesh, and that's really a combination of what can I edit that's you know, giving my time constraints, I can actually hash out in a reasonable amount of time, given that it's 2 videos per week, and obviously I don't do this full time. I have another job and all that. So it's trying to figure that out while at the same time keeping it creative, interesting enough that it's visually engaging. So at first the workouts, they started off as a montage, but it turns out that, you know, you don't want to get too formulaic where it's like if everyone watches every video week per week, they feel like they're watching the same thing over and over again. So while that was fun the first couple of times, I think the transition to people talking about their workouts while we show it in the corner, which was actually a friend recommendation, worked out really well because they can see there's a sense of reliability that okay, they did work out. We can visually see that they're doing it, but with the commentary of the vlog, kind of keeping things interesting, keeping it new. So it's trying to find that balance between too much formula and you get stale, but not enough formula and you kind of on the editing end make it really tough to do something that can be consistent. So whereas the first edits, and obviously because the first time I made the video, there was the intro and all that, and that took a lot more animation than usual, we were looking at, you know, I think 8 hours worth of editing for that first video. By the end of it all, because we had a formula that made sense, but I had fun to play with it, that's when we were looking at, it took me 3 hours to edit a video, 3 to 4, depending on what we were trying to do. And obviously the more you add to it, the tougher it gets. But all in all, when you have it formalized to a point where you see what works, what doesn't, and that's why you just got to throw things to the wall because eventually you'll figure out what's making sense. At that point, you can be free with it. And at the end of it now is just trying to do the more creative end of it. Now that we had the mechanical part of it figured out, it was just what storyline do I want to portray for the week? You know, what are we trying to convey to the audience with this episode?
Yeah,
And that's kind of where
you can start building emphasis on different points of that week or different characterize like the people in it to be more of themselves or like kind of build the narration of it through the video flow.
Yep. Especially that once it becomes formatized in a way that you can figure out your timelines, you can reasonably be like, okay, if I want to make this look a certain way, I know I have this half hour to really incorporate it in. because I think that's something people don't totally realize is that, you know, if you do on the fly every single time, that means you're starting from the bottom up every single time. There's so many things that you could or may not account for, and you know, there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that you need to find your balance.
All right. So I'll move on to kind of the production side of it mostly. You were talking about how getting the items for the different challenges and all that. How much prep work was done for episodes? I get that for the vlogs and all that, there's not that much to be done, but for the slides to be made and for all of the like the challenges to be set up and all that, I mean, there's a lot there that was happening.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that there was a decent amount of pre-work, but because we had, so during the 2 week ramp time where we were saying, okay, we're going to do X date, I spent a lot of time trying to prepare things in a way that things were as reusable. You know, I'm a programmer, so from very early on in my career, you're taught, you know, anything you can reuse or you can rehash in a certain way is really going to save you a lot of time in the future. So, like, let's say the slides. Instead of creating a new slide every single time, I created a slide template. So every week we just have to submit in the numbers. So that saves us from having to redo it every single week over and over again. With these, say, the transitions, I spent about a day creating the transitions in After Effects in a very template friendly fashion. So like this, whenever, let's say, challenge was Cinderblock hold. Well, now I could just go into the After Effects file, change the text for the challenge, and I'm done.
Yeah.
So it was really creating all these different templates and things I can just drag and drop, but make slight changes to so that they're different every single week.
Okay.
So that kind of stuff we were able to do ahead of time, and it was reasonably okay, especially if you're smart about the way you template it. It shouldn't take too much time, and you get a lot of reuse out of it.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the challenges themselves, it really depended on week for week. Most of them didn't need so much stuff that we didn't have. It's a two-part thing where, one, we kind of want to make it, you know, really, a lot of the challenges a lot of people could do at home. So we know people who did, like when we did the glass holding challenge, where you just hold a glass in here and see who can hold it the longest. It's something really simple and stupid, but we've had a lot of people actually send us pictures saying they were doing it too.
Yeah, no, exactly. You know? So getting some of that feedback as well of like you're not just putting out in the void, and we'll talk about that as well later of the feedback that came through from the episodes. But a lot of stuff like that, the response on social media was very interesting to see. A lot of people were coming back to you guys with the challenges.
Right, because a lot of people say like, oh, this was fun, this was dumb. And a lot of things seem simple. Like that glass holding one sounds really dumb and simple. Oh, I could do that for an hour. But it's like, you realize it's very tough to just hold something like in the air for X amount of time, even if it's something as light as a glass of water. So while we tried to keep a lot of things grounded based at home, you know, nothing ridiculous we threw too much money at, there were a few where the prep work was just getting some stuff beforehand. So like for the taste testing challenge where we were blindfolded and we had to taste stuff, we had the rest of the coalition, so Jamie and Noah, go out and fetch a bunch of things without our knowledge. Or
getting Jamie to get the math test or the 5th grade test.
Yeah, exactly. She had to do some prep work on that. And so it's not just us. We did have some support from other people in the coalition, which means that we could have made content like the quizzes and all that without having to rely on the internet and whatnot. So while there was some prep work, I will say the benefit of having something that's very vlog style is that prep work is light. Like compared to my other previous stuff where it's, you know, because it's all information based, or me presenting strategies if I'm playing a game or whatnot, where I have a bunch of slides I make every day and I need to create a bunch of graphics for it. Because of the free form of it all, it made it so that there wasn't all that much prep work.
Yeah, and being that it, as you said, free form and vlog, you can say like, you decide how much work you want to put in. If you're going to choose a challenge, you can make it easier on yourself by not making it like, oh, we need to find this specific thing, and adding on to the fact that we were in a pandemic, not everything was accessible. So there was a lot of creative work done in the challenge findings and all that.
Right. Yeah. So that's the thing. Well, the pandemic was kind of a dual-edged sword in that it gave us a lot of time to, one, be able to focus on the weight loss. You know, a big thing about weight loss is that it's tough, not only because you have to be disciplined with yourself, but eating out and the consumption of things is so ingrained in how our society communicates with one another that, you know, it's tough to take into account things like going to the restaurant or going to friends' houses for parties or anything like that, where, you know, just consuming is the act of socializing.
Yeah.
So that got taken away from us, which is really good because it's a lot of pressure we didn't have to deal with and kind of fight with while going through the journey. In consequence, it means, you know, we're stuck at home. While we
Yeah.
manage through, there's only so much you can do at home before you start running out of stuff.
Yeah.
And we have the benefit that we have 2 homes to work with, so there's a bit more space, but, you know, we can't do like a obstacle courses or anything that involves any kind of, you know, restaurant or any companies or anything like that.
And
So it was
even just in the working out in themselves. I mean, Vigo and Tyler have started complaining, as you as well, but the workouts at home kind of suck. Like not having access to a gym, not having access to, and I totally agree. I'm also in the same boat here. But working out, doing the 10 to 15 hit workout, or like just doing a cardio, going for a run, all that, it's great for your health. It gets really repetitive because you're gonna do plank for fucking forever.
And that's the thing, is just in the videos I kind of describe how, especially for people like us who have always been more competitively edged, who did sports, you know, there's, when you're going to the gym and you're lifting weights, there's like very direct numbers there that you're hitting, and it's just, can I beat kind of this high score? And in trying to get fit that way, it's already gamified for you, which makes it really interesting. Like, I hate running. I can't stand it. But you put me on a soccer field where I have to chase a ball, you know, that context around the physical activity I'm doing provides a lot of motivation. So the only thing that gets really close to that is like, if you're running, maybe you can start timing, you know, how much you run a kilometer in, and then you can get it that way.
I that's kind of how I challenge myself to do that. But even more in that sense, I like the gym. I like for the high score and everything, but I started liking it less when I stopped doing sports, because I didn't have a reason to do it. I wasn't working out to play football or working out to do X. I'm working out for working out, and it loses a little bit that luster. I want the challenge even further than just a big number, because the big number doesn't mean anything to me anymore. But back when we were living in residence, like, a big number is a big deal because you can brag to other people, and it was important. CJAP. It's not important anymore to anybody, but it's kind of there. That's like, you don't have anything to challenge yourself with or surrounding the actual activity.
Exactly. It's all about that context. Like, for me, I suck at working out or getting fit for the sake of getting fit. It's just, it's terrible to say, because obviously you should want to do it for your own health and well-being. But I think this contest among all 3 of us is really what was able to set the tone for me in terms of wanting to do it and pushing this discipline to do it. Just like you with your weightlifting, I need a reason to want to get there. Yeah. So my previous attempts, you know, I was able to hold out for a month back when I lived in a condo that had a gym in the same building.
Yeah.
But, you know, you pull that kind of ease of accessibility away from me, and then it starts being about, I don't want to, you know, what reasons do I have to do this? Yeah. So it's all about the context around why you're doing it.
That, and like, it's the habit forming of, you're gonna when you're in the same building, there's a lot of reasons to go to the gym, not that many to not. Oh, you had a big day at work, but the gym's downstairs. When you're living in a place that you have to drive to get there, you have to like meet people. You can find so many things, and the habit building is trying to figure out the trigger points that will help you and avoid the ones that won't. But because you moved in, and there's started to be negative trigger points first, and then you start to looking for positive, you avoiding the negative ones is really, really hard. And so it's a mix of that as well. Of you reframed it for yourself, but also the trigger points where he lost this amount of weight, I need to do that. I need to push myself. And it's a lot of that. It's really, really interesting to see you guys go through that.
Right. Because at the end of the day, your mind's a machine. And depending on the inputs you give it, you know, if it's always just this negativity, and when you first start getting back in shape, that's all it is. It's just a bunch of negativity. I feel sore. I feel hungry. I'm uncomfortable. You know, obviously, if you feed your machine that is your head all this input, it's just going to say, stop doing it.
Yeah.
Your head's very lazy. It's very greedy.
Yeah. Just so here's the easy
once
out.
It gets all that. Yeah, exactly. but it's kind of pushing through with that discipline. And then once you get to a point where you're starting to see results, or you get a better weight loss than your buddies, then you start feeding it, all these positive reinforcements around that, and then the motivation becomes self-fueling from there.
Yeah. All right, I'll peek a little bit at the drama, as I would like to call it, of what happened on the production side. Of you guys started at 4 and then fell to 3. A lot happened. I mean, we even the delay we mentioned earlier in one episode, that was that reason. So your brother Fabio moved out of the apartment of the TrapClap Coalition, whatever. Mm-hmm. And that kind of brought challenges on him continuing the challenge. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on what happened and why you guys decided to keep going but not with him?
So it obviously makes it way easier when you're all in one place. It means that sure, there's different camera angles, but we don't have to account for different camera angles to capture people who are in a completely different place. Even later on in the series, when you see that we do the belly flop challenge, there were so many differences that the camera angles and people being able to see the things live made on the judging, that it affected the entire integrity of the challenge. When you account for the fact that Fab had moved out, now we're trying to get a camera for him set up so that he can see what we're seeing, and then a camera set up so that we actually see his reactions and stuff, while us trying to keep looking at the camera, and he needs to act out what he thinks his emotions are. So at one point there was just a bit less of authenticity to it, and in a second there's just a lot of different hurdles technology wise. When you account for the fact that he needed to have 3 phones set up because at the time he didn't have a computer. So on a production side, it added so much more that it just made it really tough to make it feasible. And then on top of that, there's the fact that, you are dealing with people. So people have different expectations, different schedules and all that. And one of my big things when we had first started this is that I wanted a very structured, it's very freeform. You do what you feel you need to do, and you record what you feel you need to do because you're trying to project your story onto this series. But, let's make sure that we have all the videos uploaded on Fridays in our shared Dropbox, all these different production side of things that'll make sure that, if I expect any hurdles throughout the week, I can get editing done early.
Yeah.
Or that, if we feel that we missed anything in the shots, we can get it before the deadlines.
Yeah, because everything funneled through you at the end, right? Because you're in the editing booth, and you're the only one that is editing. There was there's work done elsewhere, but for the editing part, everything has to go through you, and then the video comes out of that. So I can see where there's a lot of problem with coming from this.
Exactly. So when you account for the fact that here and there, and this isn't only true for Fabio, this is true for everyone at the coalition, that, some upload dates weren't respected, or that when you do upload videos, don't just upload 20 videos, make sure you title them. So like this, because, editing isn't just throwing clips in. I need to watch the clips to understand what's in it so that I can add it. But then if everyone's adding in an hour's worth of clips, that's I can't spend 4 hours just watching stuff to figure out what needs to go in and out. So it's things like dating your clips and uploading them properly. So there's a lot of surrounding process around getting it to the editing booth that needs to be accounted for. And, so you add on those restraints alongside being in a different location, and meaning we have to work with way more video clips and just the whole recording setup in general. And it just made it way too tough to account for.
Yeah. And
but at the same time,
we had a little peek of it. I think there was one episode where you had Fabio phone in for one of the weigh-ins or something like that, and even then it was a little hard because you had the subtitles going for what Fabio was saying, because it was hard to hear him. It wasn't really clear of what was happening in the shots, what he was seeing and all that. You don't get facial expressions and all that, which is a lot of what you guys were doing. I mean, you're very lively people. You do reactions and it would have missed a lot if it was kept having a non-video or just audio.
Right. And I gotta say, I'm really proud of our production quality for what is essentially a sub 100 YouTube channel. like when
There's a lot
Yeah, like softbox lights, multiple camera angles with everything we do. Depending on the episode, if we're trying to be a bit more interesting, we've done, mid-challenge interviews. We've done, we've tried to change up the formula in so many different ways. But there's only so much you can do with that when it's not something you're committed to full time. And at that point, it becomes a balance of, trying to do your passions while also, taking into account that you have a whole life around that too.
Yeah.
But and then we just decided to keep going. We figured this challenge was for us first. I'm not so how do I put it? I'm not such a great person that I'll say, my weight loss challenge was for everyone else watching. No,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
for me and my, for my brother and Tyler. But I won't, it's definitely a huge motivator and I'm very glad to hear that we've inspired other people to do it as well. So whereas it started and really kept going for us, it's definitely a driving factor that we now have this commitment to people saying, you guys are going to watch our progress every week. And this is something you can use as a motivator for yourself if that's what gets you there.
No, exactly. And it's I really like the overlap. And the reason I like the show a lot is you have this schedule. You have to be accountable because a lot of people are going to see it. And there's no reason to fake it. You can't just say like, oh yeah, I went for a run. If you didn't go for a run, it's going to show on the way in. And if you didn't do like, you have this accountability built into the show format, and having it scheduled, and you're not saying like we'll upload whenever we can, forces you to stick to those and make sure that you're coming to those deadlines and making sure that you're actually putting the effort in.
Exactly. So you add in the accountability, the kind of commitment that we made to everybody else, and it forces you to want to stay on track. It's all about that structured free form. If it's something that you see yourself doing X amount of time, regardless how freeform it is, you need to add some structure around it so that it's something you can reliably work with.
Yeah. And the whole deadline idea, and we're going to pivot to post-production and get an idea of the editing on a deadline. I mean, you have, as you mentioned, a full-time job. This is a hobby. This is a thing you do for fun. But having to put out 2 videos a week, how much of the kind of filming ahead to get the clips in and all that, how much was done to just trying to ease up your schedule because it's falling on you, as I said earlier?
Right. Well, that's why everything was shot a week ahead of time. So I wish we had done a better job about this, but that's why sometimes the continuity seems a little bit off, because we'll do a challenge or a punishment way later in the week than we had posted the rest of the vlogs, let's say. But that was kind of a necessary evil because, this is a hobby. This is something I'm kind of fit in my schedule. So everything was shot a week ahead of time. And essentially, because it's a weekly vlog, we go from Monday to Friday, we vlog all that, and then we do our weigh-ins on Sunday. That gives me about 4 days to get the punishment and vlog video out, and about a week to get the weigh-in video out.
Okay.
So that gives me a lot of time to try and incorporate it into my schedule. And those are just, it was one of the things I had to account for right from the beginning. Because especially when you want to do something that's structured, you need to have timelines that are realistically with the amount of work you're going to put in. And I think that's one of the big downfalls of a lot of creatives, is the fact that creatives don't like having to manage the timelines aspects of it, the people management stuff. That's why, and it sucks, but that's why we have managers, because we want to focus on our craft. And, there's so many videos where I know I could have done XYZ differently, better, or added more into it, but it wasn't realistic to the timelines I was working with. Yeah. And I'd rather have something out there than something that's in production hell and I never actually get it out because I'm too busy trying to be creative with it.
And and it's
so.
Go ahead.
It was just all in all, it was just essentially we're looking at about 2 to 3 hours between the punishments and challenges recording, and then X amount of time depending on how many people vlog during the week. So recording time, it wasn't too bad. That's kind of the benefit you have of having multiple people. It doesn't take too much time from one person to really get a lot of content to work with. Yeah.
And in the same idea of trying to save time, you mentioned that you did a lot of work in After Effects at the beginning, and I think we spoke a little bit earlier before the podcast. You wanted to do this also as a challenge for yourself. You were doing the challenge for your weight, but you're also doing that as a creative challenge. And talk a little bit about how trying to do the After Effects intro and getting all that done. How was that kind of getting started? Because you're not a pro in After Effects.
Absolutely not. I've always been in the creative realm of stuff. When I was a kid, I think 10 years old, I used to animate using Pivot, which is like this stick animator where you create essentially a skeleton, but for a stick figure, and you would
Yeah.
just animate that. And from there, I did a lot of sprite animation in Macromedia Flash, which was Adobe Flash and then became
It
Adobe Animate.
died. It is,
Yeah. So for anyone, for any Gen Zs out there, if you've ever been on Newgrounds, that's the kind of stuff I was doing. So I've always been in the creative world, but those were always, based around animating something or whatnot. After Effects is a very similar world, but slightly different in that, the tooling is different and you're working with a lot more live footage, and it's not so much animating as it's piecing things together.
Yeah.
So you don't get as much free form as you would with, an animation program where it's like if you don't like something, you can just doodle it in. So it's something that I haven't worked on a ton, but I know that if I ever wanted to, I have dreams of eventually maybe having a creative studio or being able to create, way higher graphically edited videos. I knew that that was a skill I needed eventually. So I just figured right now is a great time to test out a bunch of different things I would need. I've dabbled in streaming, but I never had great transitions. So Adobe After Effects was a great avenue to test out transitions. And then you get a lot of transferable skills when you self-teach yourself, things like that. Those transitions actually worked out really well for the video series after that. And not only just that, it meant that I worked with masking. You end up working with speed because it's like, how do we move things in a way that's eye-catching?
Making the motion
You don't want
feels
something,
regular.
because you don't want something to just float across the screen without any acceleration, deceleration, just kind of blue. That doesn't really visually catch you. So it's how do you speed it up, slow it down, and that I can take into Premiere, which is mostly just putting clips together, but in a way that makes it interesting. Then you start including L cuts or J cuts, where it's like, you're talking over a piece of B-roll, or a B-roll rolls into a piece of dialogue. So this project really was just a great way for me to say, I want to really stretch my chops in terms of these creative outlets and see how far I can go. And then that includes also Photoshop, where like I used to be an Adobe Fireworks guy, and then Adobe axed Fireworks.
Yep.
So now it's like, so now my only route is Photoshop, but Photoshop has so much to learn that I'd always strayed away from it. Having a workflow that forced me into it means that I'm learning a lot into it as I'm going in. So while, it was weight loss was a huge factor, I also saw it as a great opportunity to try and really expand my skill sets and try a bunch of different things that I wouldn't, because I know eventually I'm going to be able to reuse those things again.
Yeah. And
so After Effects was great in that I was able to really do things very templatey, but also in a very interesting and exciting way for the different needs of the videos.
Yeah, and it's also like the excitement of a new project is you get to try out new things. I mean, I'm a programmer as well, as you said, and when you get a new project, you get to try a new technology, try something new, and just push a little bit. And this is what's happening. Is this new project allowed you to add a little bit to your skill set that you already had? I mean, you did animations before and all that, but it's learning at this knowledge in a new environment, and it really ended up well. I mean, the intro was on point from my own perspective. The timing of everything coming in, the description of what the challenge was, it was really well done. And it goes back to, this channel had no subscribers at the beginning. If correct me if I'm wrong, but when you guys started the series, it's a brand new channel,
completely fresh.
Exactly. And so the amount of work and effort that was put in brought you guys to however you have now. I mean, you're a couple hundreds, I think. Correct.
We're in our first 100. But the viewership on our videos is actually really
exactly
low.
So
like our first video has about 1,000 views. So it's a lot of stuff that's eye-catching. Now it's just kind of getting them pulled in for the longer term. But viewership wise, our videos have excelled all our projections in terms of our first series and our first, hurdle into it all.
And it's a lot of that effort that was put in of making it look crisp. Like you want to fake it till you make it, and like, dress it up, or what is the saying supposed to be for dress like you want to be, or whatever, be what you want to be.
Just like the job you want to have or something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Make it look like
Mm.
you have 1,000 to a couple thousand subscribers already, and you're making a content that's going to be lasting forever. And it really came through. And a lot of the as I said, the intro, the lower thirds, the transitions, everything was felt like a full on like used to production. And then you guys just added your like personalities to it, and it made it really like a fun watch. And I think that's why
And
it clicked a
what we're
lot.
going for. Yep, and I think that's what we're going for in that, you know, you have to realize that that content's gonna be out there forever. So, you know, if ever, let's say the channel does blow up, or there's any other avenues that we do where it's something that could be traced back to us, we have something that we can proudly say we made XYZ, you know, however far ago we can. So for me, that's kind of a creative. I think creatives tend to have this thing where we're way too hard perfectionists on ourselves. So obviously, it's trying to make something that you're happy with, and obviously, there's things you could do better, but something that you're like, it's out there. I'm glad. So putting that perfectionist spin on it and making sure things like the intro were very clean and very interesting and eye catching, that the edits are in capturing and they don't bore the viewers. I think those are a lot of things that you kind of just have to take into account as you're working on it. And it's definitely something that many, you know, years or however down the road, I can look back on it and still say that this is something that not, you know, it's one thing to start a project, but finish it and do it in a way that you're very proud of from start to finish. I think the starting off as strong as we did really helped us move along with the rest of it.
Yeah, and then also the same idea of you guys had a set endpoint, right? It was going to run for, I think it's 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that means you're not going to be like, okay, well, we need to manage content to make sure that we're going to still have stuff later on, all that. You have to make sure for those 12 weeks you have content. And then after that, you're done. So you're not trying to scavenge to make sure that you're going to be surviving for however long this series, like if the interest peaks and we're going to keep going. No, this is the amount of time, and having an ending helps you kind of direct your content correctly.
Exactly. It contextualizes it and it helps with the storyline. You know, one of the big things when you're editing things like vlog is that it's a bit incoherent. You know, everyone's going through different things throughout the week. It impacts people differently. And when you're all shooting together, it obviously reflects itself on how that recording goes. So having as many things as possible to kind of provide context to the entire thing helps drive a storyline. There is going to be an end to it. We have targets that we're supposed to meet, and taking all of that into account helps us stay structured in our free formality.
And you've like getting the videos on YouTube and all that, that's stuff you've already done, having your own YouTube channel. But was there any differences there of like, okay, well, the exporting, getting the tags or whatever? I don't work with YouTube that much, but was it a different thing being that it's a vlog now? It's not something that you're used to.
It's more clickbaity.
Yeah, no, exactly. Making the thumbnails and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just that the because there's no niche to work off of. I mean, there is in the fact that it's a weight loss niche, and like if you're the type of person who's into like the Knock Knock Boys or, you know, David Dobrik, we kind of have that fun personality clash between all three of us. So you kind of get a little bit of that, but there's not as much free viewership, I want to say.
Yeah.
You know, I used to make animation content, but it was really easy to get viewership because let's say I animated Sonic. Well, now I have that niche to pull from.
Yeah.
Now my current endeavor is trading card games. So that's a lot of free viewership on just a lot of people are interested. Like the niche is there, and it's those kinds of niches where people will consume as much as they can get. When we're talking vlogs, well, everyone lives a life.
Yeah.
So it's how do you capture those people? So it's the difference is really trying to figure out how to not only break into the niche, but create our spot in the niche, because it's something that's, you know, so oversaturated. What can we do with our formula or the way they present it that makes it different? And then in terms of Photoshop, that just means being a bit more clickbaity. And I'm really precarious with my clickbait. I want to make sure that's accurate. We never lie. Yeah. We always, you know, if I quote anything on the thumbnail, it's something that's been actually said. But it is something that, you know, you try and do as many things that'll capture people's attention to try and get them in.
Yeah.
And then process-wise,
the red circle, the red arrow, It's all there, just pointing to, oh my god, how did he do
Yeah.
this? Yeah, it's part of the works.
Because you're just trying to be as eye popping as you can, and it's one of those things where your followers will understand. They like your content anyways, so they decide to subscribe and keep on going with you. And then that's just there for hopefully capturing new an audience and getting those people in.
And was there a research done on other like channels that kind of do a similar thing? I mean, did you guys kind of look at, okay, here's their format, how could we turn it to ours, or was it just we have this idea, we'll run it through?
We ran with the idea, but Tyler was the one who expressed the bigger idea, and I kind of brought it in from a technical aspect. You know, these are all the things we need to consider. This is how it would make sense in terms of our upload schedule. And then based off what I've seen work, you know, from David Dobrik or from the, you know, the Logan brothers, regardless, their process works. So what are they doing that would make sense in terms of incorporating into our own process? So there was that sort of thing. And because I've been on YouTube for a long time, you know, give or take, I've been on YouTube, I think 8 years at this point in some fashion or another. Keeping fact of the trends. You know, you want 10-minute long videos because YouTube promotes rewards longer videos these days. So I think we only have 1 or 2 videos that are sub 10 minutes. It was always a goal to make sure that, you know, you put as many things on your side as you can. So, you know, good thumbnails, good titles, good tags, good video length. You know, you want to make sure that you're bleeping out anything that's, you know, any swearing or whatnot.
You tried your darndest there.
you tried, you know. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, so I used a duck quack to get over all the swearing, and you try your best, but it's just really, I found that it's a lot more of trying to put the chips on your side than everything else, because you're not working with smaller niches. You're working with something that's oversaturated, and you really need to find a way to carve yourself out in this kind of like mass of people just living their lives, doing the weight loss thing, all that.
And you mentioned kind of promotions and trying to promote your idea, how YouTube does it, but also you guys are doing it on your own. And a big problem of creatives at the beginning is you're not ready to show it to the people you actually know in real life. And it's a really hard step to go through, but you guys all accepted it, and it was posted on every social media and really made it a big event. And a lot of people that you knew from high school and whatever were coming through to this video, and a lot of people caught on and kept going with you guys. So how is that promoting kind of done on your side?
It was just a lot of commitment that, you know, we made this thing and we want to get it out there. Not wanting to show something until it's ready I think it's one of those big downfalls of creatives. Like, there are so many things I've started and I've just either stopped or refused to show anybody because it wasn't at a place I was happy at. Or happy with. And then like for a while now, let's say Fabio made a couple of videos where he tried this series called Fab Eats, and I'm telling you, I think it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen, because Fab is a really funny personality guy, especially when you put him in front of a camera. But he was one of those where he's like, I want to make sure I have a lot of videos that I can put out. You know, so we forced him to upload the video, and eventually he took it down, I think about a month later. And it's one of those things where creatives get very much in their own head about, you know, other people seeing it. I think it's just one of the things we had to accept. Vigo's really good with that, where he's just like, you just got to put it out there. You just got to, Vigo's a very business oriented person. He's just, we made it, we hash it out, doesn't matter. And I think because of the subject matter of the videos, it already deals with vulnerability in a way that protects us. You know, no one wants to start fat shaming people, and Lord knows the internet is the way the internet is. But the context of the content itself means that I think it was going to be positive feedback regardless of how it was. And then you add on top of the fact that I think we have some top-notch editing and video production in it, and it helped out a lot. So I think it's just a balance of what we were doing is very much well in tone with what society is all about right now, plus the fact that the production quality was there.
Yeah, and how is the reception? Because you mentioned you got good feedback, but it peers through to outside of your kind of connections, right? Your network brought a lot of views, but for a video to go to 1,000 odd, there's more than just friends and family in there. Like, how is the reception from outside of that?
outside of close friends and family, it's actually been pretty good. We get a lot of like Vigo would get messages about, oh hey, I see that you guys are trying to do this to publicize your content. Well, I've been doing content for a long time. Try putting the links here, here, and here. So a lot of people have been great in trying to offer help and help us expand. I know Tyler has a friend who did a lot of sound stuff on his own and is kind of an audiophile very similar to you. And he's like, hey, you guys should try doing XYZ, yada, yada, yada. So it really did expand outside of our circles. And it's actually kind of fun whenever, it's interesting in that you wouldn't think so, but when someone mentions, oh, hey, I saw your video, like that was pretty cool. Like Tyler recently got a job again. He's now welding for this fencing company. And after the interview with his boss and they were walking back to his car, he's like, hey, are you the guy from those weight loss videos? And it's
I mean,
and it's one of those.
How do you react? Like you're trying to get a job, and
so it's surreal because at first you never really do this for other people. You're just kind of doing it for yourself and for fun, and there's always that slight expectation
hopefully you try to make it
other people will eventually see it. But the response of people wanting to be a part of it all, and I think it's not even just from being a part of the production, but just being a voice out there that you listen to that can hopefully formulate or change the trajectory of it all, I think is kind of what it is. People recognize that this is a thing that's moving forward. It's a boat that's on the waters, and it's people want to be a part of a community or want to be involved. And I think that's the biggest take I've gotten from it is either people starting their weight loss journeys, getting random strangers letting us know how much we're helping motivate them, or just expanding the network and all these different people from different technicalities being able to provide a support or insight on things we had never, we didn't know about.
Yeah.
So I think being able to push out your craft, regardless of being too much of a perfectionist, I think getting it out there, the world craves content. And your personality, your spin on it is always going to pique someone interested in that they either want to be a supporter or they're going to help you push forward. So those were the big things that I took away from it, how much of a sense of community comes from establishing something like this.
Yeah. And you guys were really good about getting involved in the community as well. It's not just, all right, well, people are commenting on video. You guys were responding to a lot of things, and even in the videos mentioning some of the comments that were coming through. And it was really, really fun to have that back and forth created with, you're not just on screen, you're actually responding to what's happening. So I feel like you guys handled that very well. And it's kind of wraps up how the last video that you guys released was the sushi eating / challenge that you guys just brought it all together and kind of wrapped up how the challenge went and everything. And is really, really good way to end. And, I think it sums up the journey in itself of there's a lot to happen, but you're all coming out better people as just the habits created through the videos for personal sake or for work wise as well. I mean, as we mentioned, you're working full time. There's a lot of the habit creation of weight loss, and you mentioned that at the end of your monologue, I should say. Of this is something that you need to start, and you don't see anything happen for a while. Right, this is what weight loss is you're going to be putting in a lot of time for not a lot at the beginning, and then slowly it starts growing into, oh man, I'm actually like, this shirt feels nice, because and everything kind of builds up and it really stacks at the end, and you can step back. And Vigo is very good in the idea of taking photos, because you can really compare how much you guys came from and what happened through all that. So I want to say congrats for the channel, for the weight loss, and for everything that happened. And thank you. I want to kind of pivot a little bit to what you mentioned also is your other channel, and how you have a very, very different output there. You have a channel that's way more niche, as we mentioned, and it's a formula that you kind of have based on what the demand is, but how did you get started in that? Where did the interest for card games started?
So I think I've been playing Magic the Gathering now for about 5 or 6 years, and around that time, I was still very much in the world of making animation videos. So the world of YouTube and producing content is just something I always want to be a part of. I'm a very opinionated person, shockingly, and kind of giving my take out to the world has been something I've always really been big on. So that started off with Magic had released this new platform to play online, and I figured I'd always wanted to get into game streaming. I really like kind of creating content around my interests. So I figured this would be a really great time to get into it. And then that eventually pivoted from Magic over to Dragon Ball, which is the current card game I play right now. And it's a completely different world in that there's a lot of content you just get for free because you're pulling your content from essentially some other thing. And I think it's very similar to things like sports in that kind of way, or anything of that form where your content is based around stuff other people are doing. In a card game, we're talking about tournament results, new cards being released, bans and unbans. There is so much that you can drive away from what someone else is doing, and it's just giving your opinion pieces on that. Or with sports, it's team is doing this well. What
Drafts.
are their chances of playoffs? Drafts, players, trades. There's so much you can derive away that's just you, and that's kind of really the biggest parallel is that when you do things like vlogs or weight loss or anything that's you are the content, you drive everything. With the trading card game aspect, now it's just how do I take this other thing that someone has driven and put my spin on it.
Yeah.
So that the channel is more oriented around new players. What can I put in new players' hands to get them interested in the game or to understand bigger parts of the game? So I focus on things like I call them archetype 101s, where it's like when you get into the card game, what style do you like to play? Are you an aggressive player? Do you like playing control? So my content goes into the different types of styles that you can play to find what interests you. Um, Additionally, it's things like gameplay. It's one of those things where you just kind of have to figure what the current trend is in the niche you're playing in. But that's really most of what it is. It's between gameplays, teaching new players new stuff, and giving opinion pieces. And honestly, it's one of the benefits of working in a smaller niche. Like Dragon Ball doesn't have a ton of content creators. Even Magic the Gathering, for as big as the game is the largest trading card game in the world. It has over 20 million players, and I think there's still only one content creator that broke 1 million subscribers on YouTube for the game, and he does like a bunch of other stuff too. So it's you get the benefit that there's so much drive for content that your channel grows essentially for free.
Yeah.
So so if you can make it to your benefit to find a niche that kind of self drives itself, it helps you a lot. And that's kind of what you have to figure out if you do want to be a vlog channel or something like that. How can you nicheify it or drive into a category that makes it interesting and makes people want to go to it, or how you can drive people to it? So like I went to Las Vegas for a tournament last year. I vlogged that, and it's vlog, and I get to practice the vlog style, and I get to do a bunch of different things creatively, but I still get that protection that the niche provides me.
Yeah.
So it's the difference between working in a niche you're creating yourself and you are the content, and driving your content off from something else.
No, and it has a less kind of constant schedule. You kind of create whenever you have the time for it, but it still has regular views, and it's really like keeping to that. So that's why I feel like keeping the niche close enough to something that interests you. Because if you're making it with just the idea of, oh, it's going to be free, you're not going to come out with anything. But taking the point of it's something that interests you and there's a lot of interest for it, then you can start building those pieces together and have that kind of twist that you bring, and you can start selling yourself as a personality over the content that is interesting on its own.
Exactly. And if ever you want to pivot, now you have a platform that pivoting isn't just start from the ground up. You have a place, you'll have people that have followed you for you, and then you're able to take that with you. So it's all about driving, real passion and consistency in what you're doing. And if ever you want to change, at least now you're not changing from nothing. You have people that, you have other content creators that are there to be there through the journey with you. You have supporters and viewers who are just there for you at that point. And essentially, it builds on itself, and from there it gets easier to pivot and change as you move along.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned the creative idea of how you want to have a creative studio at some point, and you put your hand in a little bit of everything. Of you're a programmer that does art, that did programming of for some games, and like you kind of tried a little bit of everything. Is that just you trying out to figure out where you'd be interested, or it's you have a general interest in everything and you'll figure out later on what the peak one or the one that brings you further for that creative idea is?
It's very much an interest in everything. I very much embody the idea of jack of all trades at this point, where lots to different degrees, everything kind of peaks at me a little bit. It's just depending on the ease of access of trying to get into it and how easy it is to self-teach. Like music is one of those things that I've always been interested in. I've tried downloading Fruity Loops, and I've done many different things in the audio realm, but I find it's one of those things where the ease of access and the learning curve is so much steeper than anything else I've ever done. I've never been able to stick to it completely.
Yeah, and it's a very much like the weight training journey of in learning an instrument or learning a program. At the beginning, you do a lot and see nothing. There's no progress done. And I think it's one of the best things that you can do is learn an instrument, just because it teaches you that there's a reward at some point. You have to stick to it, right? If you just say like, I'm going to learn guitar, but you never actually come through and try to learn guitar, and you just say like, well, I've kind of tried and didn't work. You miss the point. But it is a really good thing of music is if you put a little bit of effort, you're not going to get anything. If you put a lot of effort, you'll get a little bit. And then if you put a ton of effort, you'll be able to reach that point where there's a ton of progress made.
Exactly. So I know enough to fix up my audio depending on the video or clean it crisp and all that. But it's really just, I see a deep appreciation in most crafts. So I want to be able to get my hands on as many things as I can, figure out what makes it tick, what makes it work, and why do people, come to these types of medias. Now, obviously, being from an animation world, things that revolve around video come much more clearly to me. You're dealing with timelines in the applications that can do very specific things. And at that point, it's very much like programming, where it's just like, okay, how do I do the thing I know this thing can do? And at that point, it's just doing a bit more research and stuff like that.
Yeah.
With that said, I think video is very much the thing that I always come back to. I think it's that having that mesh of, music, visuals, and storyline all coming together into one place to kind of portray a story or portray an idea is really where I would want my focus to go into when it all comes together. And so I just want to know as much as I can on my end in the different aspects, whether we're talking sound, storyboarding, actual movement of the clips and all that, so that when I come to a place where maybe I'm just directing, I'll be able to have conversations with the different people in my team in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're not baseless on whatever you're trying to figure out, and you have an ability to understand what's the problem and how kind of guide the person that has the expertise into a solution that would work. So no, I totally
exactly.
Get that.
Like I don't want to be the client or the graphic designer who's like, this blue line isn't red enough.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
what?
All right. And I kind of want to know on what's upcoming or what's next for the coalition. Let's start there, because you guys are done now. It's going to be the end, and the channel's still there. The series is over, and I know you guys are mentioning that you want to do more content. What's that going to look like? Is there any plan? Is there any idea? Or is it just, if anything strikes
There's a
for
couple
all
of
of
ideas. There's a couple of ideas. I think we're going to try and cut down on making, long series, like very formulaic. This is the thing we're doing for X amount of time. And we're going to try and do things that are more off the cusp. We have this great idea. Let's hash it out. Let's do it. I think we have a good mix of personalities and interest in a way that we could eventually make the coalition a kind of brand that sticks. And really at the moment is just trying to figure out what we want to do to make that kind of image work.
Yeah, because you guys created that personality already, right? The concept of what the channel is there. So now you can kind of freeform into whatever you want to do with that basis of people come back for the personalities.
Exactly. And it was always trying to be centered around, let's star build. You know, I think things that stick around for a long time are because you finally you have people that people want to cheer on or support or go into. I think some of the greatest esports, you know, when we're talking esports, some of the things that have really made some games stick and some game not is the star building. You know, when we're talking, you know, CS:GO, you want to support certain players, you want to support Cloud9, you want to support, you know, there are people that are there that you want to be a part of. And when we created the content, it was really important that when we created the storylines in the videos, we made it in a way that really expressed who that person is and gave it insight into being somebody that you want to partake with, be a part of, be involved. So that lets us the avenue to pivot, because the channel was never just to be a weight loss channel. That wasn't the whole thing. We don't want to be based just around fitness, but it's kind of a journey that allowed us to express our vulnerabilities in a way that lets people know who we are and opens the door for more content in the future. So if anything, the idea of the coalition is very similar to, let's say, Logan's Team 10 or Offline TV, where it's just, you know, we're trying to group people together in a brand that we can just kind of take ourselves, do what we find interesting, and hopefully we can turn it into content that'll be interesting. All so right. While there's nothing concrete right now, like we've talked about maybe doing like, you know, a drinking game Olympic style videos, right now it's trying to figure out where we want to take this, as well as the lessons learned. You know, we did 3 months of recording, and that means people had to commit X amount of days on what is essentially a hobby right now. And is this something that we can move forward? Is this something we can keep doing? What didn't work that made us stressed, let's say, or that impacted the production timelines? What can we take moving forward after having done this very structured 3-month period that we can prevent or help us in making the content forward? So that's kind of where we're at. It's just seeing where we want to move forward with it.
Exactly. All right. And then on the other side, what's next for you? You still have the DBZ channel, and that's going to keep going, but now you have this new audience from the TrapClap that you can kind of bring over. Is there going to be a kind of midpoint, a channel that's not as niche, that's more on you, or do you still?
Yep. Like I figured that, you know, now having experience in the vlog stuff, and I'm trying to explore a lot of different type of content creators and just kind of seeing what works. I definitely think leveraging the coalition and the kind of content that was into something that's a bit more freeform than strictly trading card games makes a lot of sense. And it's just, with the way YouTube works, you kind of have to create a new channel anytime it's something completely different. Yeah. So unfortunately, I'm not going to pivot my trading card channel into, you know, more of a freeform lifestyle or just, you know, very Mr. Beast challenge or, you know, throw money at the wall style videos. But it's definitely something that we can leverage, that I see that works. And I think from the lessons learned that we made from the TrapClap, I'd be able to pull that into a more personal channel. So I've thought about doing different things. You know, obviously, like I mentioned, I'd eventually make my own studio and trying to see, you know, if that type of content is something I can make right now. I really like the idea of doing spin-off videos of stuff I was really into when I was a kid. But like, I don't know if you've ever seen it was kind of like a fan-made Power Ranger, but more serious YouTube clip. And
no, I've not.
So essentially it was, yep, but essentially a bunch of great actors who just made like a more serious version of the Power Rangers. And it was like a 15-minute clip. Those kind of things really interest me. Just take all my old interests, but spin them in a way that makes sense for today's society.
Yeah. Creating content with it and making it your thing.
Exactly. So there's that. There's maybe the lifestyle stuff. So definitely it's opened my eyes to making things that I would want to build my own personal brand with. And then obviously at that end, there is some more freedom in just working with my own timelines. You don't get the benefit that you can get so much free content based on the fact that you're just so many more people recording, but you get the ability to really structure the storylines and the things you want to do in your own way. So it's kind of give and take on that end.
All right. And also, I mean, you're going to be coming back to this. You passed the interview. You're now officially a co-host.
Yeah, awesome.
But yeah, I think that wraps it up on my side. If there's anything you want to plug, again, all the list of your channels and all that, if you want to plug it, go ahead.
Sure. If you guys want to watch and participate in the journey that was the Fat Losers, you're welcome to join us at the TrapClap Coalition. It's very easy to tell. All the thumbnails look the same except for all the very enticing pieces. And if you'd like to get more of me or like to get into any trading card games, EspiraTCG is where you can find me.
All right. Thank you for coming on, and we'll see you again probably next week as we bring someone else on, maybe, or we just do the both of us, whatever happens.
Yeah, looking forward to shooting many more of these.
All right. Goodbye. This concludes the episode. Thank you for listening. Both the intro and outro songs were songs of mine, and the link can be found in the show notes, as well as a link to everything that was mentioned during this episode. We'll be back again next week.